Okay, so I am just checking the x, what will be the x value. So it is starting with the THE, so that's why we use the cap. So let's check with the dot star. So dot means any character except new line character. Star means 0 or more occurrence. So, so instead of Spain, I will just SPAI. So we'll check what will be the output. So this is returning the none. So it means that it is not matching these expressions. So because SPAI is not present in this text.
Actually, that
Mhm.
start with is there, na? Start with.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whatever letter start with the D, it should come as a result, right? In the result.
It means that this should be start with that capital THE. So if I give some different character, so let's try this, whether it will give that. So now it is having the Spain. So this Spain is there. So it is returning as a none. So because this text is not starting with the THE, so but it is starting from Harsha. So even if I give here Harsha, it should.
But it should search the entire.
So now we are getting the object. So also that span which start from 0 to what is the complete character length. So that is the complete object.
Okay.
So also if that is ending, it should be end from the span. So for example, if I want to add my name as a end, so then again it will give the error because this is not ending from the.
Ending with Spain. Okay. Okay.
So then again we should get that none. So you get an answer because this is not ending. So like this,
Mhm.
able to see what and all is available. So that regular expressions. So depend upon our requirement, that time we can able to see and we can uh, try. So for which one it is suitable for us. So if you use
Okay.
R, so whether it takes any of these two values, it should be false or it should be stays. So any one of the will be there. So then it will consider it as a expression. That expression is matching. So that occurrence of that string should be 0 or 1 occurrence. Then we should use the question mark. So one or more occurrence. So they are using the plus operator. So like that, if you want to compare, if you want to check some value with the existing text or array, it means that complete string. So then we can check by using the regular expression search method. So pip is the Python package installer. So I will tell you so how it will be useful and so how we can able to use it. So pip is actually a package. So even in the IDE, so if we go to the settings, so if you go to the project interpreter, so here it will show the actual Python installed virtual environment. So this is the virtual environment we have installed, Python 3.10. So that virtual environment name is the Learn Python, which I have given. So in this, these are all the packages it has been installed. So pip will come by default. So from the Python. So whatever the libraries uh, we wanted to install, so we use the pip commands so that we can install some package and we can check that. So even in the terminal, if you open the terminal, so it will show the VNV. So this is the VNV, this is the virtual environment for this project. So once we create the virtual environment, in the beginning also I have told that, so whatever the dependency libraries are required, so those libraries will be installed only for this package, only for this folder. Only in this folder, those libraries will be there. So that time, so different projects can have a different kinds of libraries. So that time it will not uh, unnecessarily it will not match to some other project which is not necessary those libraries. So requirement.txt is as I told you. So in the beginning also we use the pip command to install the packages. So just by giving the command pip and space install -r requirement.txt. So requirement.txt means it will install whatever the packages we have mentioned here with the version number, that same version will be installed. So for example, now I will delete this. So initially it will not be there. So, but you have completed the project, you have done something, you have implemented something, and then now you have to push the code to the GitHub, or someone has to be work on the same project. So that time you should create the requirement.txt, because whatever the packages if you have installed to the library, install the library in the virtual environment, so it will be stay in that virtual environment. When you are pushing the code, you will not give the virtual environment folder, because it is a very large package. It like say if you use the node modules, or if you use the any .NET framework, so you don't give the .NET framework itself. So when you are giving the project, .NET framework will be stays only in your system. So only the source code you will give to the developer to continue the work, or if he wants to add anything for that project. So in the same way, we don't give the virtual environment. So inside the virtual environment, so we have installed the lot of libraries. So that time what we have to do, so in the Python, we need to run the command pip space freeze, and then this greater than symbol, and then requirement dot txt. So when you freeze this like this, so one file will be generated. So whatever the file name you have given. So in this environment, there is only external library is only NumPy array. So that is NumPy is one of the library. So only this library we have used. So that's why it is showing only one library. So then once you given this requirement.txt, so then you have to give the all these files except the virtual environment folder. So you will give all these files. Otherwise, you will push this code to the repository. Even you will not push any virtual environment files. So you will push only your project files, development files. So along with that, you should push the requirement.txt also. So when someone has to start working for your project, so before starting, he has to be install the requirement.txt. Otherwise, he will get the errors because that errors is you have not installed the numpy library. So that time what he will do? So before starting the project, first he will install the library by using the pip commands. So when you type this command, so that time it will install the complete package. So like this, we have to use the pip code. So this is the most important thing. So in the Python, when we want to manage the libraries, when we are installing the libraries. So because Python is having a very rich and large number of libraries are available. So most of the programs only we develop the business logic in a very simple way. So all the logical things, any algorithms, everything we will get it in the Python libraries. In the Python libraries only, we will get lot of things. So we just use to import the libraries and we need to know how to call that methods and how to use that library. So that is the main important. So if you have any doubts in this, you can ask. So if you not understand also, so I can explain. Otherwise, if you have any doubts also, I will explain that. So we also uninstall the packages by using the pip uninstall and then the package name. So then that time, so that package, that library or the package will be removed from the virtual environment. So that time, if you use the, so when you extract to requirement.txt by using the freeze command, so that time it will not show the library which you have uninstalled. So like this, we can install any of the Python libraries and we can install and uninstall. So also if you want to see the list of packages just in the terminal, so we just type the pip list command. So that time it will just list all the libraries and the version numbers. So let's try that command also. So these are all the list of libraries we are using. So these setup tools and wheels will come by default in all the Python. So pip also will come by default with all the Python versions. So only NumPy is the external library we have installed it. So that's why when we do the freeze, so in the requirement.txt, we got only the NumPy package. So any doubts in this?
No, sir. Clear.
Okay. So it's the most important pip. So because
Yeah.
we most of the time we use this one, even if you start working, so you will be continuously you will be using and you will not forget those things. So only now, if you have any question, you can ask. So that is the try catch block, and so these concepts we have used in all the programming languages. So try catch means, so whatever the code it is executing, if it throws any runtime error, so only if it throws the runtime error, so we got that error in the exception. So what happens? So if we put the exception, so then program will come to this exception line. It will not crash the application and it will not stop. It will not stop executing the application. Instead of that, it will catch the error and it will start executing the exception module and it will continue to execution. So that is the most important thing. So when there is a chances of getting the exception. So for example, if you are fetching some data from the server, so but that server is not responding, or server is uh, it is stopped. So that time we might get 505 error, something something server error. So that time the values will not come. So if we but we are trying to read the value from that server response. So but those values will not be there. So that time it will program will stop, that a complete application will stop. So because when that executing that code, but in that case if we use the try catch block, so it will catch the exception. So when there is a error, so it will catch the exception. So this is the try catch. So first let's try with the try and except how it works. So with the example, so okay, I am just trying to do the addition string and along with the integer value. So let's debug it. So when it is doing a plus b, it got the exception. So that's why it came inside the exception and it will print the error cut. Also, it is not crashing the application. It is just continuing. So that's why this line also 11, line number 11 also, it has been executed. So for example, if there is no try catch, if there is no try catch, it's directly throwing the error and it is not allowing to execute the next lines. So if it is allowing to execute continue the execution, it should print this line. So, but it is not printing this line. So it directly exiting the application at the line number 6 itself. So that's why we should use the try catch block. So in such situations, so where there is a chances of getting the errors, it means only in the runtime errors. So because A and B only will be do the addition only at the time of execution. So that time that is not able to do the addition with the character along with the numbers. So because it can only happen, addition will happen only between the integers or float or double values. So for example, if there is no error, for example, I give just a integer of two numbers, addition of two integer numbers. So then it should not print this exception message error occurred. So just let's execute the code. So now this is not printing. So it is printing only completed the execution. But if it is a string, it will print the exception. So because this code is got the exception, so that's why it came to the exception block and it execute the all the lines of code which is there inside the exception block. So as we have written only one line code, so it will just print the error occurred message. So even whatever we want, we can do in the exception. So when we got the exception, if we want to prompt to the user something, server is not available, please try after some time. So those kind of messages also we can prompt to the user. So like this, we have to use the try catch block. So and we'll check the finally block. Let's you execute. Let's you execute the code regardless of the result of try and except blocks. So finally means so whether it is uh, exception or without any exception. So finally we'll execute every time. Also there is a exception errors. There is a lot of exception type errors. So there is a name error. So it means some variable name error, something if it is there. So then it will exactly came to that exception block. So for that we need to give except and then exception error name. So that time it will start executing this code only if there is a name error. So if there is a something different types of exception error, so it will come to the default except. So else part also it is the same thing. So if the exception is not there, so it will execute the else part. If it is a exception, so it will execute the exception part. So still if you want, there is no any exception, still we want to prompt to the user something, so then we can use the else part. So how we were using in the if condition, so in the same way we can use the else part. So finally we'll execute irrespective of whether we got the exception or not. So it just execute all the time. So every time this code will execute. We can put any number of lines. So just for testing purpose, we are just testing only one line. So this is printing try except is finished. So if it is without error also, we can check. Now the error occurred is not printed. So but still it is printing the try exception is finished. So even if you want to raise any error, so we can use the keyword raise. And also there is a inbuilt methods to indicate some error types. So even we can raise the exception. So just check with the raise exception. So this is manually raising the exception. So just by putting some condition, if something is wrong, so then by manually means by our programmatically, we can raise the exception. So that time when the exception is raised, so it will start executing the exception block.
So okay, without any error also we can make some error like.
We can raise the exception. For example,
Okay.
yes, from the system, it will not identify, it will not detect the error. But for us, we wanted to raise some exception. For example, validation. Okay. So what is validation means? If C is, it should be greater than 10. If it is not greater than 10, I want to raise the exception. So when the exception is raised, it will come to here. Then for the user, I will prompt. You have there is no matching value. So it is a greater than 10 only. So if it is a greater than 10, it will rise. If it is a less than 10, it will not rise. So let's debug and we'll check that. So C is 15. So it should be the true. So then it will come here. So then if it rise, so then it should execute this line. So it is coming to this line. So I will just make this the 1. So then it is not the greater than 10. So this time it should not raise the exception. So this exception is being skipped. So then exception is not raised. So that's why this didn't come to the exception block. So finally, anyway, it will execute whether it is a exception or not exception. Finally block will execute. So even if it is required only, we can create a final block. Otherwise, it is not required to create the finally block. So we can just remove it. So only whenever it is necessary, that time only we can create the finally block. So even in the front end, in the any website. So in the website, if you want to do if you are doing some registration or if you are filling some form So in the forum, there is a validation will come. So in the Python Django, what will happen? So if you want to raise the exception, where exception means validation errors. So we can raise the validation errors. So that those things we will see in the Python Django when we start the topic. So user input means it's nothing but, so we are taking the input from the user. So we are currently whatever we have executing. So we are just assigning the values directly instead of this. So we should be able to take the input from the user. For example, if the user wants to do addition of two numbers, so he should be by himself, he should be able to enter the A and B value. So then only he can get the sum of A and B just by giving his own input A and B values. So in the Python 3.6, so they are introduced input like this. So you need to type input, and with the open bracket and close bracket, you can pass the some string. So then that entered input value will be stored in the variable. So in the Python 2.7, it is in a different way. They were using the raw input. So as we are using 3.10, so it is the greater than 3.6. So then we should use this format. So this format will give the error. So let's take the input of A and B only.